The moderator for our panel discussion is Advocate Tando Gumede. She's award-winning. She's globally recognized as a humanitarian, a rights defender, an educator, a feminist thought leader known for her work in anti-racism, gender equality, and economic empowerment.
Thank you so much, Kutlwana. That was absolutely brilliant. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel for the Menstrual Health Day Summit 2025. Before we get into the crux of today's panel, I thought I'd start things off just a little bit differently. Ordinarily, I would kick off by talking about history, but this afternoon, I really wanted to make myself a little bit vulnerable by telling my story. So when I was a child, I always felt as though starting your period was one of the worst things that could happen to a girl. I remember that when one of my close friends told me that she had started her period, I instantly wanted to get away from her. I was so afraid that being close to her would lead me to also start my period. Menstruation was such a confusing and deeply uncomfortable thing for me. In fact, I once temporarily stopped watching one of my favorite cartoons because the protagonist started her period. I was watching this show with my older brother, and I was so embarrassed to hear them talking about sanitary pads that I stopped watching the show out of fear that the episode would repeat again with my brother watching. Menstruation was such a mystery for all of us back then. All the girls knew that menstruation is something that happened to them, but none of us actually understood what it was and why it was happening. I started my own period about a month after my 13th birthday. I was so afraid that it took me 3 days to tell my mother. And when I did eventually tell her, she handed me a pad and she told me how to use it, and that was it. She did not give me any more information beyond that. My entire experience of puberty was filled with shame, misinformation, and disinformation. In fact, my friends told me once that when a girl gets her period, it means that there's an egg inside of them. And every month, that egg breaks. And the blood that you see is the blood from inside of that egg. Folks, it was only until the age of 16 that I knew what a period was and the impact thereof. I learned about menstruation for the first time in my grade 11 biology class. My biology teacher was a Greek man, and he represented a safe space for me to learn about my own reproductive system. And then I began my own journey of caring for myself and most of all, loving myself. I menstruated for almost 4 years without any understanding of what was happening to me and why. Fortunately, I had resources to menstruate in a healthy and dignified manner. However, there are millions of girls and women around the world who do not. And that is why we are gathered here today. How many more young girls out there are still caught in a web of shame that is amplified by the lack of access to resources for a healthy and dignified period? And folks, I need you to understand that a healthy and dignified period does not just comprise of sanitary pads, tampons, and cups. It also comprises of access to clean running water to wash our bloodied hands, to wipe the toilet seats that we sit on, and to wash our panties and even our clothes that we have blotted. It means having tights or short pants to wear during that time of the month. And of course, having a private and environmentally friendly manner of disposing of menstrual blood. The United Nations Population Fund has listed some of the human rights that have been universally agreed to be undermined by women's and girls' unfair treatment during menstruation. They include the right to health, the right to work, the right to non-discrimination and gender equality, and the right to water and sanitation. Now, the panel that we have today is here to explore these areas of socio-economic impact, as well as to explore the urgently necessary interventions required to remove the stigma associated with menstruating and to increase public participation in society for women, girls, and queer communities beyond patriarchally imposed domesticity. This panel is incredibly special because it brings together voices from different spheres of society. People who work in the anti-gender-based violence movement, in education, the disability rights advocacy movement, LGBTQIA+ rights movement, and global development. At first glance, these causes may seem distinct, but today we explore one powerful intersection, that is sexual, reproductive, and health rights, which encompasses menstrual health. Menstrual health is central to the dignified existence of girls, women, non-binary persons, and transgender men. It is central to restoring dignity, achieving equality, and unlocking national potential. We have, folks, an incredible group of community leaders, activists, and change makers. Let's begin by meeting our incredible panelists for today. I would like to start from this side. Please may you introduce yourself, your work, and tell us about what drives your mission.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Hola, hola.
Jovicho.
My name is Macy Mutaung. I've got many caps. Dr. Ruth said to me, which one can we use? I say, let's just collaborate them and make them one thing. I'm a survivor of GBV. I was raped 20 years ago and be left with HIV. But you won't tell I've got HIV, I think. It's not written on my face. It was corrective rape. And I'm survivor of pulmonary TB, cervical cancer, Shriners, and all the rest is history. And I'm LGBTQI activist, where I'm representing LGBTQI within Gauteng. I'm LGBTQI provincial chairperson within Gauteng East Council Civil Society, where I think this movement of Dr. Ruth will really, really impact in a positive way, especially within the civil society. And I'm very much happy, Dr. Ruth. I've extended the invitation without your knowledge to our provincial chairperson who's sitting with co-chair. She's co-chairing with our premier, Mr. Panyazali Sufi, to come and listen to the dialogue. Hence, in the sectors we've got youth and children and women's sector, where I think they play a major role in terms of bringing this program to the community. But in that regard, as I'm representing LGBTQI plus, I would like to say that we endorse. We are on the floor. We want to run with it. I know people will say, how is it possible to LGBTQI? We've got the transgender women, we've got transgender men, where I think we'll unpack it on the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Macy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Simphiwe Ndlazi, and I am the Program Assistant for the United Nations Population Fund. I support the Adolescent and Youth Portfolio. I also support the Gender Portfolio. I am a social impact enthusiast and an advocate for girls leading, girls taking up space, and girls having access to the basic services that will help them actually be at the best of their ability in spaces that they exist. With the work that we do at UNFPA, we are the lead agency for sexual reproductive health. We are the South Africa country office, and we lead the agenda of ensuring that all the SDGs that are actually concerning menstrual health, which I think it's all of them if you take a close look. Statistically, they'll tell you that it's just eight, at least eight, but it's more than that. I think menstrual health intersects across all the sustainable goals that we want to achieve. And so our role as the UN is to play a convening role, is to play an advocacy role, and is to ensure that, like my colleague has presented, the knowledge management of menstrual health is kept and is maintained to ensure that when we propose such innovative solutions as menstrual cups, evidence is backing us. So that is the role that we're playing as the UN, and that is the role that we seek to continue to amplify. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simpiwe.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Nga Tendwe Shemrombedzi, but everybody calls me Nga, so please call me Nga. I am the Advocacy Policy and Marketing Manager for Southern Africa with the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation is the largest independent provider of HIV care treatment services globally. As an individual, I am passionate about redefining impact. I am passionate about storytelling. And at the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, how we find ourselves here is through the intersection of menstrual health and hygiene and HIV amongst the adolescent population. And it is imperative that we gather people, not only governments, thank you, Minister, for joining us, but also private sector. Where are the investments going? So that's part of what I'm very, very passionate about. My academic background is in anthropology and development studies, and it's particularly into how do we capacitate corporates, especially through what they're calling corporate social responsibility, to ensure they're actually speaking to the communities and that impact is measured through the actual impact, not just through statistics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nga.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Elmarie Pereira. I'm CEO for an organization called Memeza Shout Crime Prevention. And what we do is we provide vulnerable women and girls with tangible safety tools, something that you can hold, something that you can press or pull, that either makes a noise or communicates that I am in trouble and I need help. So these messages are sent to family, friends, and neighbors. We partner with the police services. We partner with the Department of Social Development. It's almost like an Uber service for someone in need, because if you need help, we will see what is the closest responder to come to your aid. So I joined Tuli Mtetwa, the founder of Memeza, 10 years ago. And the reason why I joined her is because my sister was killed by her husband. And at that stage, I was in a corporate career, wearing stiletto high heels every day, which I don't think I can walk in anymore. And I wanted to make a change because gender-based violence touches everyone. And it wasn't until I met Ruth in New York, while we were honored with our UN Humanitarian Awards, that it struck me how important and what the linkage is between menstrual health and the availability of menstrual products and how that links with gender-based violence at the end of the day. And that it was awakening for me, and that is why I'm so glad, Ruth, to be here today to speak about that. And, you know, I think for me the message today is from protection to empowerment. Empowering girls with menstrual dignity is the first line of GBV prevention. Because when you feel dignified, and when you feel like you are in control of your body and you don't have to feel ashamed about this natural process that happens to you, then maybe, just maybe, you also have the will to stand up against somebody that wants to do something violent to you. So I think it gives you the power to become the woman that you need to be one day and to feel strong. And this is why I think we shouldn't be putting menstrual health and GBV in separate lines. They all work together at the end of the day. So thank you very much, and I'm proud to say that I'm currently on my period. I've said that before.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I call her Lady Ruth, Dr. Ruth, to be a part of this important conversation. My name is Tapela Mampane, and I'm the founder of Baitudi Mampane Foundation. Now, our role specifically, we focus on fundraising and resource mobilization to implement projects in rural and areas that lack basic amenities and lack of access. So what we've realized is that there was a lot of talk in the room today about GBV. We implement programs that affect both the girl child, but particularly the boy child. Because what we realized is that the conversations that happen around the girl child usually isolate the boy child. And then therefore, we then go into preventative measures instead of now teaching them to be leaders, to be thought changers, and then all of those things so that we don't, at the end of the day, face a problem where now we have to address them as future perpetrators. So essentially what we do is instead of waiting on government to implement policy or change policy, we engage corporates through corporate social investment to purchase sustainable solutions such as the She PowHer menstrual cup. We have footprint all over the country, so we are national. We have a national footprint where we work on the ground in the rural communities, where we will take something like She PowHer menstrual cup through purchases of our partners, our corporate partners, and we will distribute whether it be schools, whether it be communities. So that's predominantly our role, where we focus on resource mobilizations within areas where there's no access to such things. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Thapelo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pulemwa Lucy, a member of DPSA, a chairperson of Disabled Women in Gauteng. Then I'm here for Voice of Voices for women who are out there who didn't know what is the menstruational cup. Anyway, as much as I'm here, we have been introduced towards the menstruational cup around 2020. So now we are trying to distribute as much as encouraging women to use it, and we are proudly so because of there is a lot of challenges when it comes to women who are disabled. Guys, as much as my disability, I'm sorry to not introducing my disability. I'm not born disabled. It was a rob, a gunshot, close range, whereby they need a phone. I couldn't give them the phone because I was from the work anyway, early 2000s. Then it's whereby I get my disability. I'm paraplegic. And then after my disability, when I come, I will cut the story short. When I come from a hospital, everything was shut down. Then I have to get help. Then blah, blah, blah. Okay, now I'm here. I can do as much as other women can do. But the challenge is one. Here comes menstruation. Hey guys, it's a challenge. I can't change myself. As much as you see, I'm sitting on a wheelchair. Let me say I'm going to the public toilet. The pets itself, it's giving us a challenge. You know, it shifts. Even at night, it shifts. And it's infection. There is a lot of infections there. So now, I have to think of tracing out. It's a challenge. So now I'm here to ride this train with the Sister Ruth, whereby the department, they can hear her. Really is challenging, especially others. There is another disability, which is a quadriplegic. You can ask yourself how they manage. During the night, you know they can leave them. Even the helper is here, you pay. They can leave them the whole night. Doesn't change the pets. During, in the morning when you come as a helper, it's whereby you change the pets. The pets is full. How about the bed? It's so irritating and it's painful. I thank you.
Sis Puleng, before you hand over the mic, Sis Puleng, so, you know, I think you've touched on something really important. In general, persons with disabilities are excluded. Even when you look at our urban infrastructure as we develop, we hardly think about being inclusive in that way. So can you maybe just speak to us about how, you know, people with disabilities struggle insofar as exclusion or being included in the broader menstrual health discourse? Because we are now starting to have these conversations. But my question to you is, do you feel that persons with disabilities and those who are leaders for PWD are actually being included in that broader discourse, especially at high level, looking at policies and transformation? And if you feel like there's no inclusion, can you maybe elaborate on what exclusion looks like and feels like?
Okay. One thing I can say, it's I don't know how to put it as it, but there is exclusion because let me talk about Puleng for now. I'm 50 years old, and then my disability happens 2003. Yeah, 2003. I never work. I apply. I did everything. I'm educated. I have everything. But there is something that you can see on the other side. They don't take us into consider, especially to disabilities. When it comes to disability, it's a challenge. I don't want to lie. Because everything that you have to do, you have to fight for it. You have to push. If you have to be, like now I have registered a company, I have to go and fight. And I have to fight all the time. You have to push and fight. All the time you fight. You know what? Even the transport, you can imagine I was doing the learnership in Randburg. During the day, during the morning, it's raining. Do you know the transport? They pass me. They just pass me. It's a rush hour. Oh, see, you are wasting our time. The other day, I really cried to see that I was taking myself as a useless person. Why I'm disabled. I see people who are disabled, they are not functionally at the high levels because they want us down the ground. If you see the person who's disabled is high there, you must know there is something. We are receptionists. You are too high. If you apply for the other job, they will tell you you are too much educated. There is a such in this world. You are too high educated. You can't go to what's the CEOs, whoever position in the any globally, let's say, any firms or whatever. It's rare. I don't wanna lie. Disability on eye is the lowest. I don't wanna lie. And we are fighting for the rights of the disabled people. We are knocking. That is why we are saying nothing without us, nothing about us without us. Still, I can say even here, I couldn't manage to enter. Yes, even the toilet, it doesn't have any access for me. But there is people here. There was a shop yesterday I was going to. I'm not allowed to enter. I was asking why. It's because I'm not existing. Why? Because I'm using this chair. I'm a person too. I'm a living person too. I have a right of access. I have a right of freedom of movement. I have a right of an able person who have, like others. You know, women, when you apply, let's say, like now I'm fighting for women who have companies. Do you know what they say, the constructions and so ever, who able women? They say, you have to wait there. What do you want here? You have to stay home. You are sick. I say, there is no sickness here. Do you see a sick person? I'm not sick. I'm here to want something for my kids. as much as you are here as well. I don't want to lie, we are undermined as disabled people. Even the kids. Do you know, even the kids? People, they rape the other lady who she's blind. This young lady, she's 18. Do you know the magistrate what she says? She says, how did you saw that person? What was that person's wearing? Is it fair to us? No, it's not. Let the law recognize us, even the people who are there in parliament. We are people too. It's really painful. But we are here to stay as South Africans, and we are proud of ourselves. And one thing we love ourselves. And when it comes to sanitary pads, there is a company which I cannot name that company. You know, the pads are so expensive for quadriplegic to have pets. It's too expensive, and the government doesn't give us that money. I'm worried about those ladies. That is why I recommend them towards a menstruational cap.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sis Puleng. Let me then maybe jump over to Tapelo in this moment. So, Tapelo, your foundation provides school shoes and nutrition to learners, and you've kind of stepped forward as a male voice in the menstrual health movement. Just tell us a little bit more about what moved you in this space, and do you also, in the work that you do, are you also inclusive and aware of students that have got disabilities and their needs within the work that you do?
Thank you so much for that question. As by 2D Mampane Foundation, the things that you've listed we are not limited to those things only. We try by all means to tailor all programs and needs specific to the communities we serve. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So what we realized is we kept going back to schools, right? Donating and getting donations and funding from corporates to buy pads and tampons. But the issue is that they are not sustainable. And then we function in an area that is not easily accessible, in rurals. So you have to keep going back. I can name 50 places that you would not even recognize. We function in those type of areas where there's no access. So imagine I have to keep going back again and then again, because the perception is that you give one girl a pack of pads and you are done with her, right? Menstruation is an ongoing thing. So we had to find a sustainable way of this problem. And I was fortunate through a friend to actually be introduced to, again, I call her Lady Ruth, a few years ago. And then, like so many of us, I wasn't really aware of the menstrual cup or educated within the menstrual cup industries. And I actually set up an appointment with her. And she's a talker, as you saw. And then she pitched this thing to me, and I left there amazed. The one thing, as you say, are we inclusive, is that we realized that very early on that you have to be systemic collaborators. So what that means is you have to align with policy. So a lot of the people that we service are kids in schools. So early on, we approached the Department of Basic Education and the headquarters to a point where we created MOUs and partnerships and aligned with them as to what are the issues so that we can approach them from a governmental standpoint and a policy level. And the beautiful thing about the Department of Basic Education is that it touches on almost all the departments in that they have directorates. They have health promotion, they have social cohesion, they have QLTC, which is the Quality Learning and Teaching Campaign, and so on and so forth. So they touch on almost a little bit of each of the departments. And then in that way, we are then able to align ourselves with policy, inclusivity, knowing that, listen, this is not just about menstruation, it's about comprehensive sexual education, you know? And then understanding that gender is not binary. You know, there's people of diverse sexual orientations, and you have to be sensitive to that. So what do you do in that case? How do I, as Tapelo, as a male voice, speak to somebody who menstruates and yet I have no experience in that, right? I mean, if you were to tell me 2 years ago that you'd one day be sitting here and talking about menstruation, I'd say, you are nuts, you know? But I can today proudly say that I am a menstrual advocate. And through this is how actually, why it is so important. It is so important to empower the boy child. And then this is why I always say, in the rooms like this, when women speak, do not speak down on the boy. Usually, your biases are towards your own man, and then the boy child suffers. So we call them future perpetrators. And I think that stigma alone damages them. So we need to be mindful of that. We did an event last week about on the International Day of the Boy Child. And the boy child, because of the focus on the girl child, has been alienated as the unintended consequence of that. In that now we see higher suicide rates, higher dropout rates, higher disease rates, right? And then the issue is whenever we speak to the girl child or issues of the girl child, we don't include the boy child. So you have to include him, educate him to say, listen, when as Dr. Ruth said, if you see a girl with blotted clothing, instead of pulling out a phone and putting her on TikTok, take off your jacket and cover her. How would they know to do that if you don't educate them? You know, we speak about GBV. You know, if you empower a young man, they automatically know that it's wrong to put your hands on a woman. So instead of now punting GBV prevention, punt education to the boy child. So I think on that level, I'll just park it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tapelo. I think that's really important that we broaden the discourse to be a little bit more inclusive, because we haven't been able to provide context on the gender equality discourse. So it seems like we're excluding boys, but we're really just balancing the scales, but not providing the historical background. And so it makes boys feel very alienated. But I think that's very important. Thank you so much. Let's then move on to Dr. Elmarie. So your foundation supports survivors of gender-based violence. Can you perhaps just go a bit deeper on the intersections between violence, dignity, and menstrual health? I know you touched on it a little bit, but it'll be great if you can perhaps enlighten us a little bit more.
Thank you so much. Definitely, and I think, safety begins with dignity. And as we've seen in the news in the last months, and probably for a long time, all the challenges that we've been seeing happening at schools, those are some of the news stories that get into the media. But that kind of story happens every day at home when a girl cannot go to school because she's got her periods. She stays at home alone when her parents are not there, when brothers and sisters have gone to school. So her being alone at home makes her vulnerable. And that is, I think, where the intersection lies. Yes, it is linked to dignity and to self-pride and to understanding who you are as a woman, and that you've got rights and that you can say no. And I mean, the fact that girls cannot afford to buy pads and a lot of time have to do sexual favors to earn money to buy that pads that they need, and next month they have to do the same, because it's not a sustainable solution. So it is so interlinked. But I think one of the key things is for me is we must make sure our girls in the rural communities, it doesn't matter where, when there isn't supervision, they can be in a secure environment. And we would like to think that having the ability to go to school, we would like to think that is the secure environment. And I think in most cases probably it is the secure environment. So enable our girls to go to school, which means they are in a secure environment where there's adults that can look after them. They're not being left alone at home and being vulnerable to potential violence, and predators that can see that they are vulnerable, and to that. So I think there's a big interlinking, and I can't wait to partner with Dr. Ruth, because Memeza does, gender-based violence awareness and education all over the country, and focused on the most vulnerable communities, rural communities, there where you really need to get the tools out to secure girls. And I can't wait for us to put this awareness together and open it up to also include the menstrual cup and how important the menstruation cycle is as part of who you are as a woman and why you need to stand up as a woman and what that means to violence that can come later in your life and how you can prevent in many ways, not always possible, but prevent through being aware that you become a victim of violence. And I think it is very, very interlinked and very important. So I look forward to, sending that message out there through the youth that we speak to on a daily basis, where we visit communities to talk about gender-based violence and how these things are interlinked.
Doctor, just a follow-up on your contribution is, how can menstrual dignity support trauma recovery? I think you've seen a lot, for instance, at Tutuzela Care Centers, when you put the packs together after someone has just survived an incident, within that pack, sometimes you'll find some sanitary dignity products. So maybe can you just walk us through just a little bit on how menstrual health and dignity and the provision of these resources can help with trauma recovery for survivors?
Definitely, and I think it comes back to probably an issue that a lot, and probably most of the women in this, and a lot of men in this room know, is that, molestation, that kind of violence towards youth, lots of time comes with self-blame. Somehow it was my fault that this guy did this to me, my skirt was too short, or whatever the case might be. And you start getting a real, a bad relationship with who you are as a woman, with your vagina, with, all your parts. You start disliking yourself. So I think introducing those kind of things into dignity packs when you are at that stage and you are at a Tetuzelo center and you need that help, and you just get this pack with a device in that just removes a little bit of that I'm ashamed of myself, and it can return a bit of the dignity, goes a far way in your healing process when you have had to deal with that very intimate harm to you and your body. So definitely it does contribute to that healing process.
Yes, and I mean, if you think about the fact that someone who's been sexually assaulted has basically had their agency taken away from them. So educating someone about their body and how to restore that sense of agency can really be helpful within the broader long-term healing process for a particular person. So thank you so much for the great work that you do. Let's perhaps look at Nga and some of the work that your organization does. So, in fact, let's maybe go to Simpiwe. Sorry, let's go to Simpiwe. As a young person, Simpiwe, what are the general sentiments with regards to menstruating for young people in the year 2025? So I don't want to hear you talking about 2003. Just what are the sentiments about being someone who menstruates in the year 2025, but as a young person?
Thank you for that question. I think it's twofold. And the reason for that is because young people are not under one umbrella. There's young people who carry different demographic backgrounds. You've got young people from rural areas with no access to education, no access to good services, basic services. And so their understanding and their attitude towards menstruation and menstrual health as a concept is going to be limited. Particularly, it's going to be stigmatic, right? Because they live in an environment that does not enhance their understanding of what menstruation is, for them to own it, to embrace it, and to know that it's normal. We were attending provincial consultations along with the ministry on the work that we're doing. And in the Eastern Cape, the committee reported that in schools, when they distribute pads, the boys laugh.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, that is the kind of demographic lens that you have to look at when we think about advocacy around menstruation. If it was ideal, in 2025, that shouldn't be the case. As a country, we are such an advanced country. Yes, we are a developing country, so they say. I think we're very developed, right? I think we've come such a long way. Yes, there's still more that we need to do to improve, right? Because I think the foundation is there. But that is the challenge, for example, for that demographic group. But then you've got a Simpiwe who went to Wits, who has a master's degree. My understanding obviously is more advanced than that individual. And so there is then that group who absolutely understand what menstruation is, who owns it, who's not ashamed to speak about it, but who's also going into spaces like these where this conversation is a norm, right? And capacitates their understanding, but also empowers them. And so I think as we speak about menstrual health advocacy, we need to delve deep into the different nuances of what kind of young person am I speaking about? What burden do they carry? What environment do they come from? What gaps are they challenged that we can, as through a multisectoral approach, that we can close? In this panel itself, we need such strategic partnerships to close those gaps. This is not an isolated responsibility, it's a multisectoral responsibility. And I definitely think that we've got the resources, we've got the capacity to make sure that a young child in South Africa does not miss school because they are menstruating. We just need to strengthen our partnerships and really have honest conversations when it comes to the implementation of the SDIF, for example. We just need to have an honest conversation, not a political one, because this is a human dignity issue. It's not political, it's not supposed to be. When we speak about a menstrual cup, there shouldn't be a debate. We should immediately endorse such an idea. We're not saying it's the only product, but we're saying because there's individuals who come from disadvantaged and marginalized communities, this product goes a long way. It's more than just for your menstruation. It will literally determine your future as well. Thank you.
Simpiwe, I want to stretch you a little bit and ask you a more controversial question. I'm sure you know about the red pill movement, about young men online having very toxic conversations, usually about girls and women's bodies. It is the cause of a lot of mental illness amongst young people nowadays, especially young men. So my question to you is, what is the ramifications or the impact from your perspective of social media and the likes of the red pill movement and us striving towards menstrual health and menstrual dignity in our society, especially considering the fact that social media has got so much information. You can either go left or you can go right. So what do you think the impact of social media is with its various kind of nuances on trying to achieve this menstrual dignity, and also just how girls are generally perceived, how like their growth and growing and developing and all of that? Can you just like tell us what your experience has been, and you know, yeah, just enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's such a relevant question in the age that we live in. We can't not have a conversation about the impact of social media. It has both pros and cons, unfortunately. And it's so sad because social media has so much power that we can use positively. But unfortunately, because there is only so much we can do when it comes to regulation of how it is used. That's why we have such trends that have such negative impact. I think that this is where the role of education comes into play and becomes very instrumental, because the impact of such trends is very detrimental. The fact that you've got videos of people online showing themselves murdering someone, for example, and that trending, and you've got comments perpetuating that violence, is problematic, right? And it also influences the kind of attitude and the kind of men that we are going to have in the future in South Africa. It plays such a huge role in shaping the kind of men that we are going to engage with. And so I think that rather than talking about the impact, I'd rather propose a solution to say that let's start thinking about systematic ways of regulating social media, but also let's start thinking about the role that education can play in educating young boys, young girls, in how to use social media in a way that's positive. Let's start integrating that into our education system, as we should integrate education about menstruation as well. And I think that that can play a much more sustainable role in making sure that young people are aware of such. But like I said, it's a multisectoral responsibility. So the role of parenting as well plays a huge role. You can go to school, but if you come back to an environment that's also unregulated, the effort is null. And so it's a multisectoral responsibility, I'll keep saying. I think the question that everyone here should ask themselves is, what role can I play in the space that I'm in when it comes to such an issue? If you're a parent, think about it. If you're in the media space, think about it. If you're a young person, think about it. What advocacy role can you play for your fellow peers to make sure that we don't continue this? In the next year, let's have positive hashtags. Let's have positive media campaigns. But I think it's absolutely possible.
Thank you so much, Simpie. Let's then go over to Nga. So Nga, your work bridges HIV prevention, gender rights, and community health. How does menstrual health factor into this picture, particularly for young women at risk?
100%. Thank you so much. I'll start off with reflecting back. We take the menstrual health and hygiene conversation right from community level to the high level. And yesterday we actually hosted a webinar in partnership with OAFLAD, the Organization for Africa's First Lady in Development. And the idea is to take our Girls Act program, which is an HIV prevention and education program that we run as AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and we build capacity amongst girls to be able to advocate for themselves. And the motivation behind Girls Act and why we intersected with OAFLAD and we identify like-minded partners is because education has been identified as a key driver in empowerment, and therefore by virtue of empowering the young girls in HIV reduction. So we take the Girls Act program, now we're integrating it to have a standalone boys to men conversation, and we use it to power and respond to the contributing factors to high HIV rates that are exacerbated by the socioeconomic realities in the 48 countries that we support. So we have stories that we leverage out of communities where we work, for example, like Eswatini. We've had young girls that have been impregnated as young as 10 years old in exchange for a pack of pads and a roll-on. A high-performing student, we've had girls that have reproductive tract infections because they're using cow dung. In Uganda, we have girls that are using sand. But also the positive side on that, because in Impact, we don't want to just talk about this picture of Africa being this cup-in-hand kind of continent. We also have Girls Act empowering. So Sierra Leone, our Girls Act program, has worked in collaboration with the Ministry of Gender and Women, and they've actually set up a social enterprise to provide sanitary pads. So that's something that they do to stay in school, stay empowered, and be able to advocate for themselves. So we do try to bridge the gap, and I don't like to say that we go ahead of the people, because we can't ever own the stories of a young girl who has to negotiate sex for a pack of pads. That's never been my reality. It's not my colleagues' realities. So we are a conduit to bring these to people that are in decision-making bodies to say that this is the impact on the ground. And we have cases of young girls through the Girls Act program that are HIV positive that can directly link it to their socioeconomic reality. So We work very much through that Girls Act program, not our Mother Body program, but we do leverage on the space and expertise that we have to allow the girls to be able to drive this conversation by themselves.
Thank you so much, Nga. I'm going to then go to Macy, and then after Macy, we're going to have our final remarks. And maybe whilst Macy is answering a question, you can all think about what does the future look like? How do you suggest we get there? And who do we need to get there? So that's the final question that you can think about whilst Macy is responding to her question. So Macy, my question for you is, how do we build inclusive language, education, and access that reflects the full spectrum of people who menstruate?
You know, it goes back to the family background where you come from, especially from LGBTQI plus families, where there's huge stigma and discrimination. When we grow up, our parents expect us to bear kids and have husbands. So when you come out and say, I'm a lesbian, people start to question themselves, what's happening with my daughter? At church, they're going to question this if maybe one is a priest. But I think language barriers needs to be respected. We need a way of capacitating people so that they can know how to call us, how to treat us, how to conduct themselves with how to conduct themselves in our presence. Like we've got the transgender people, as I've indicated earlier, where we have, I call it AFAP, assigned female after birth, where we see that there's a need, there's a beautiful need for menstrual cup for them. People ask themselves as to how are they using it, being transitioning. It's a woman who has uterus, it's a woman who has womb, also has all the parts of a woman, but still in transition. That's where the changes comes in, and there's a point where one is using the testosterone where how to put her where genes are starting to develop of a male from a female. So that needs to be respected. But when you look at the LGBTQ people, more especially the gays, they'll just come to you and say, hey, I'm on my periods. And then you'll say that gays are on periods. How? But they say so. Gays are on, and they are not. They're just pulling your leg. The person who can be there, it's a person who's been assigned as female by birth. And the other one I call it AMAB, a person who's been assigned as male after birth. That one cannot see periods. It is impossible. Besides transition, but you cannot see them. So, answering your question is that how do people treat us and accepting us in their space? So that's where we need to be recognized. But I'm still saying to Dr. Ruth that thanks a lot for bringing this beautiful initiative. As I'm saying, every woman has a story to tell, despite how good or bad. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So my last question, general question to the whole panel, is with regards to the future. What does it look like? How do we get there? And who do we need to get there? Macy, I'm going to start with you. Go ahead.
I think the future is bright with Dr. Ruth's initiative. South Africa, I think, will be the best country to introduce that. And that is an honor. The message that I can give to you, Dr. Ruth, is that if God can take you from January to December, He can take you from pain to peace. Now, where you are at is from mockery to victory. You are victorious to us, the South African. Let's take this flag and run with it and see how beautiful is it going to impact to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Simpiwe, tell us about the future. How do we get there? Who do we need to get there?
Everyone. That's the first thing. I foresee a future where we have stable, systematic partnerships that drive sustainable solutions, that drive innovation, fully support innovation, and and make sure that it's implemented. I think the biggest problem in South Africa is implementation. And even when something is implemented, monitoring and evaluation of that implementation is critical so that we are able to take on the lessons learned and we do better going forward. So I think I foresee a future where we stabilize our implementation, we evaluate how we implement, and I think that if we do that consistently and we hold ourselves accountable, we will definitely make sure that every girl goes to school.
Thank you. Nga, go ahead.
Thank you. I think for me, the biggest thing is a future where we don't have to debate human rights. We don't have to convince our leaders to invest in dignity. We don't have to convince business in investing in innovation that is going to restore and heal a nation. I see more at a personal level a future that every girl that we support through the Girls Act program has access to the menstrual cup, to scale it up to the 48 countries that we support, but also for business, for people with big profits, for people who can look at a piece of paper and decide from the heart, because it doesn't have to affect you directly, but somewhere, somehow, is a young girl who has either just lost her life because she's in a violent situation. There is a young boy who is now motherless and therefore will show up in this world in a violent way because somebody has entered their home and killed them, their mother. So I think we need to go from policy to, big documents, to talking about what are the bombastic words that we sit in these big rooms with. And the ask is just, can we reflect on menstrual dignity from a humanitarian perspective? Can you speak to it from your heart? It's not your daughter, but it's somebody's daughter. It could have been your mother. It could have been your aunt. But even if you can't locate yourself in that particular story, but you can take your heart into your office, into your CSI department, into the partnerships that you seek, you can transform a life. You can ensure a young girl's future is bright. So can we do this from a human perspective?
So I think the future looks exciting, but it is going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of, Ruth, like you said, sleepless nights and, daunting the next morning. But I think as we are seeing, women are really starting to stand together. We are there for each other, and we're saying that we're not going to take no for an answer, because the challenges that we have in South Africa, in Africa, and in other countries, who else is going to solve it if we don't come together and solve it? So it's really exciting to have powerful women and ministers coming to these events and saying that we are one and we're going to solve this problem. And bringing public and private partnerships and the civil society as one together and speaking in one voice is the only way that we're going to get there. So that collaboration that is happening is how we are going to solve these problems, and is how we're going to take our daughters, their daughters, our sisters to the next level of every woman waking up every morning and feeling proud about who she is, about her menstrual health, and about her future. So I think it's exciting, but it's going to take a lot of hard work, and we can't wait to do it with all of the women sitting in this room. And obviously, the men too. We need you. We do need you.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
I think I'm going to echo everybody's words. I think the future is exciting. I think activism, it's not necessarily doing and all of these things. I think from a lived experience, everybody in this room is an activist, right? So if you look at your own personal story, how do you apply it? Like, for instance, guys, I'm just a young boy from Limpopo in a village called Chikanoshi, hence why I operate in these spaces. And my question to my village was, but why is there no development? Why is there nobody doing anything? And I realized I was actually asking myself that question, right? So I stood up because we're always looking at people from Soweto doing great things on TV and all of these other things. And I'm like, but why not from my village, go Chikanoshi? So that this is more than just now me doing good out there for the people. I'm actually setting an example. And I think if we have that mentality, we don't put it to government only, to do certain things. I think if we look at activism within, then we can actually be real change makers. You know what I mean? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tapelo. Sis Puleng.
Yes, I think the victory we are now nearly to it, because if as women we can hold our hands together, we can do this and support our sister Ruth towards this path, then you will see we are nearly there. As much as MMC said, it's hard, but we need to support each other. If we support each other and love one another as women, I'm telling you, we will reach towards the point. I thank you.
Thank you so much. As we wrap up then the panel, Minister, and to all the leaders in the room, I want to just clarify, folks, this is the table. This is where decisions are made. This is where we innovate. This is where we begin to design the future. And so we have to take these spaces very seriously when we come together. And Minister, I mean, you essentially have a call to action. They've mentioned the fact that there has to be an investment in innovation. The innovation is there. It's not about asking people to innovate. The innovation is there. The question is, why are we not investing in our own minds? Why are we not investing in our own ideas and our own entrepreneurs? And it is your responsibility and the responsibility of other leaders across the world to make local investment. We also have to look at changing policies and laws. It might even mean looking at regulating social media, regulating the content that human beings are exposed to on a daily basis, because that shapes the nature of the men and women that are going to be out there in society. The violence that we see is a direct reflection of the entertainment we're exposed to, the social media that we're exposed to. A very good example is a famous podcaster speaking about a fishy vagina of a woman very openly, and it was funny until it wasn't funny. And so, that's really important for us to grab the bull by the horns. The other thing is looking at how we can leverage on education and arts and culture and go back to the days of Soul City, that type of content that actually builds community, builds nations, where if your parent doesn't have the capacity to teach you something, you can at least watch a program on TV that will teach you what menstruation is and won't mislead you down a path of absolute chaos. We need to reach all the corners of the country, as Tapelo and many of the other panelists do today. And we need to be inclusive of everyone, because menstrual health is not a girl issue, it's not a woman issue, it's everyone's business. And ultimately, the fact that we don't have access to this resource is a manifestation of gender-based violence. Not having access, girls not going to school, not having access to the economy is a form of gender-based violence, and it should be treated as such. Finally, folks, collaboration. And that's why we're here. We're here, even in the audience, all of you are diverse. We are here to network, partner, and collaborate. Minister, there's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. We've got experts, including myself, Ma'am Ruth, and all of the dear Gates there. Everyone, use us. Use us to your will. We are there, we are ready, we're available. We have got energy, and we're ready to work for the country. Collaborate, 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 as our young panelist has just said, Simpiwe. Thank you so much to the panelists today. Great insights.